Good morning, Anambra, the Easter edition. My name is Ajuluchuku Okabwe. Wherever you are, I hope you're celebrating Easter, celebrating the risen Christ, and celebrating the victory over death. That's what Easter is all about. That's the symbolic nature of Easter. And here in ABS, we are wishing you, our listeners, our viewers across board, both on the radio and on the TV, all the very best of what Easter has got to offer. And that's how we're going to be starting this morning on Good Morning Anambra. But before we do, let us take a short break. When we come back, we'll definitely keep you abreast with what all we have this morning. Don't go anywhere. The show is about to begin. Glad to have you on Good Morning Anambra. That's the paper review this morning. And in the studio, I have with me Samuel Ololo. Samuel, the seasons of Easter, wish you the very best. Christ is risen.
Good morning. Good morning, Anambra. Happy Easter to all of us.
Well, it's good to know that Christ is risen, and then we are still basking in the euphoria of Easter. Well, let us begin the newspaper review with rounds ABS stories that are making the rounds on the website. And the first story we have for you is talking about Easter. Soludo urges Christians and Nigerians to uphold virtues of humility and sacrifice. Also, Anambra governorship election, Cleric Able predicts victory for Soludo. Police in Anambra rescue 2 kidnapped victims, nab kidnapper. And we have medical practitioner Okafor asks citizens to maintain personal hygiene to prevent body odor. Our police uncover 5 pump-action guns, cartridges, handcuffs in bags of rice in Onitsha. Also, JAMB reschedules 2025 UTME to Thursday this week, April 24, 2025. Easter, clerics ask Christians to surrender to Christ to overcome challenges. And then we also have insecurity. Can ask security agencies to do more to protect Nigerians. Lion kills teenager in Kenya. I hope that teenager didn't go to dare the lion in its den. Well, Samuel, you've heard it all, you've seen it, but then let us begin with the commemoration of Easter celebration, which is a yearly feat for us Christians all over the world. The significance is what we actually say. But sometimes people get to wonder, do Christians actually believe that Christ died and rose and defeated death? Because their actions don't seem to go in line with the practice of humility and sacrifice that Christ exhibited on his way to crucifixion.
First of all, I would also wish other Christians and faithfuls happy Easter. And we pray that the risen Christ will be significant in our lives going forward. So we understand that there are a lot of things that define the life and lifestyle of man. Both spirituality, there's a spiritual component of one's life, and then there's a physical component of one's life, even though we've been made to understand that more of the spiritual dictates and directs the physical. And that's why a man is always advised to be strong spiritually. On that ground, I think the Easter season has once again called for sober reflection. A sober reflection in the sense that we are looking at how far as man are we from God? How closer are we to God? Good Saturday, Holy Thursday, and the likes of it all to Easter Sunday, and then today Easter Monday. I think it should have given man enough time to really reflect on their life and on how they have actually walked that and talk of God telling us to go and procreate and then defend the earth, really. I think really what is going on in the world generally, it's now time for those who are playing both international politics and those that are playing local politics to even pull themselves away from this whole shenanigan that they feel that they are in charge of the earth. I mean, we are in the earth, and some people are talking of voyage to Mars and to the moon. I think maybe it's even time for us, if we only can imagine the volume of what is in ahead of us, then people who feel that they are that are playing God would really need to come back again, because Christ himself, that is God, when he came down on earth, he emptied himself, he made himself accessible to all, that he even had to die on the cross for our salvation. How much more men now assuming to be God? You cannot even talk to them, you cannot approach them. They feel because they have the physical powers of the earth, then they can do and undo. Well, eventually one thing that gives us hope is if people don't eventually change, highest, if they have lived on the face of the earth 110 years, they will be forgotten. I mean, we remember 20 years back, the people that were calling the shot in Nigeria are not the people still calling the shot currently. Some of them have fizzled away, some of them are still there, and people are now just consulting them to still put up the face that, okay, this person is supporting me. But they are not more as powerful as they used to be. I think this really should make Nigerians understand that every power that they have should be used for good and not destructively.
Probably that's the way it should be, and that's why Soludo is urging Christians to uphold the virtue of humility. Quickly, let us begin with the review of the papers that we have this morning, and we want to start our newspaper review with the very first paper this morning. That's going to be the Daily Independent, and then the banner headline is talking about debt servicing costs may crowd out capex, development-related spending. The writer there says, as Nigeria's domestic debt stock rises to 70.4 trillion naira. That's really, really interesting. Federal government, 80 years Enugu Airport concession plan absurd and reckless. That's coming from the expert. SEC wants social media influencers, bloggers against prompting on registered investment. And we also have Serap drags federal government to court on ban over Idris song, Tell Your Papa. Wow. A police foil kidnap attempt, rescue 10 victims in Katsina State. Also, we have Senate working on state police proposal to tackle insecurity. That's coming from Bami Daily. We also have here at the mast of the Daily Independent newspaper, Bakari asked Tinubu to stop playing God, turning Nigeria into mafia state. Nigeria reaching breaking point. We now have huge national mug. Wow, that's coming from Kuka. Really, really, really. Well, what do you see about Bakari telling Tinubu to stop playing God? Just like we are still talking about the Easter celebration.
So it's good that men of God are coming out to speak. It's interesting, and this used to be an individual who once protested in line with Tinubu during
Occupy
Nigeria protest, and that was under Goodluck Jonathan, coming up now to really make the current person whom they were protesting with to see reasons with us. Now that the structure of Nigeria. I mean, is it necessary that build individuals against building institutions? So when these individuals fail us, what happens? And then we really need to restructure our nation, the people that we give power to. And the question is, how do we even do that? That is the first thing. It's unfortunate that in the present day Nigeria, we are being faced with a lot of external factors that are dealing with us. And we, as Nigerians, are also sabotaging ourselves. Yes, we should not overrule the influence of world countries and the first world countries and the likes. people who, the Western countries that really want to make sure that
Africa
does not develop because of the resources they get from Africa. There is that line of thinking. But what of the ones that we can do for ourselves? Now, this still brings us back home. What is wrong if Nigerians can actually do the census to know the exact numbers of both the male and the female, the persons with disability in the country, and begin to use the resources accordingly for the welfare of everyone? I envy the likes of, some of these European countries, Sweden and the likes, where they tell you that the per capita income is high, where they tell you the people that are living in poverty are low. But what happens? Why can't we even recreate that? And Nigeria,
and these countries don't even have the natural resources.
We have the resources, really. So the question now becomes, what is even wrong if the basics of life, as we were made to understand when we were doing home economics in our primary school, is it food? Is it housing, shelter, food? Those things are the primary things, the basics of life. What stops the government from even providing those basics and then allowing us to then explore as we want? But we are still here where every year the landlords continues to increase their rent and the government cannot even checkmate them. So it's still bringing us back to the conversation that we are having. And the unfortunate thing is our current leaders have taken themselves as demigods, as we rightly said, where you don't even talk to them. When I wrote in my Twitter today that it's unfortunate that given the resources at hand, our leaders are not even coming together to plan for the welfare of Nigerians. Rather, they are only planning for themselves, and they are intentionally bringing little wins so that when you complain, they can point at those wins and tell that this is what they are doing, and then they magnify it, whereas majority of the people are actually suffering. This is really akin to living a life of a mafian, that they allow you to live in handouts and won't allow you to complain. And it's unfortunate. Nigerians are not really living. We are barely surviving. And we need to explore our potentials to the fullest so that we can also extend it to our African brothers.
Wow. Well, away from what Bakari said, still on the Daily Independent, we still have Nigeria reaching breaking points now. Huge national mug, and that's coming from Kuka. Sometimes you begin to wonder when clergymen that, we are in the Easter season, we know the role of the clergy in the world. But in Nigeria, we seem to have a whole lot of romance between the clergy and politics. And this same clergy, some time ago, said that in order for Nigeria to work, I'm quoting him exactly the way he said it, that the president, talking about the incumbent, Tinubu, needs time to work. And it's almost 2 years down the line. The same man is coming out to tell us that the country is now like a national mob. Does it mean that when he was forecasting the fact that this man needed time to work, he didn't know that we will be at this precipice at this point in time?
Sometime last year, I was at a program in Abuja, and I happened to hear from Bishop Kuka himself, where he was saying that no matter what he says, that we should stop celebrating him and thinking that he's speaking for us. That he's saying things the way he sees it, just that it tends to resonate with us. And I saw the reason in it. So that he's speaking, and I think if we have that mentality to really help us to begin to distill independent thoughts and not take our whole being to be on people. So when people say what resonates with us, I think we could agree with them. Then when they say things that does not resonate with us, we give the counter narrative, really. And not when they are saying things we think they are speaking for us, and then when they say things that we don't want to hear, we now say they are compromised, really. So for me, I think as Nigerians, one of our greatest undoing is speaking without facts and figures. Nigeria is very diverse. I think by this time we should have known that very well. And beyond its diversity, there are a lot of strata, both academics, educational-wise, and then the way people have embraced the nationality of Nigeria. So much so that you just can't go to a particular stratum and make analysis of the entire Nigeria. It is not acceptable. So what our leaders have failed to do, especially the religious leaders and then the traditional leaders, actually is, before you come out to have a stand, it is important you go across board to even understand how the situation is before you speak. and not because your palace you are feeding well and then you think all is well. It's
So
not,
are you saying that before they make public speech, they need to either quote the word in order so that it will go down well with the majority of Nigerians, not actually saying it point blank, the truth as it is?
Okay, so I think the way this thing should actually work is, okay, if you are saying rightly, what is it called? One of the spokesman to the president, Bayo Onanuga, was saying about a Nigerian who made his own proclamation on what he has achieved doing export, and then in his quote that there are Nigerians who are breaking bounds with export, and then there are those who have failed to cash in on it. Now the question is, in as much as this person or this individual has said to make mounts by the exports that he is doing, the question becomes other Nigerians, how easy is it for them to actually export? Even those who have micro businesses are closing out. They are not telling them to export. So they use those, like I said, they paint little images and then try to magnify it on the entire Nigerian system. And it's unfortunate that this is happening. So we don't even need a blind man to now find out that people are being killed helplessly, both in Plateau states. And these are points to show that the government is not helping the people. So when the people complain, I think what the government should begin to do now is, what is even the way forward? Everybody, open your ears both to the criticism and look for a way forward and get everybody on board and not always becoming defensive, chasing people away. When they are dissenting voice, you implant things and then kill those people. I mean, it's unfortunate that this is happening in Nigeria, really.
Well, it's really, really unfortunate that we need to read about conflicting stories about what actually is happening in our dear country. Quickly, let's go to the next paper for review this morning, and that's the Daily Sun. And then we have Kuka gives damning verdict on insecurity, and that's the banner headline. Says Nigeria reaching breaking point, gradually becoming national morgue. And we have Pastor Bakare Blast Tinubu says President major park politics has destroyed National Assembly. And we have controversies around $700 million cabotage vessel financing fraud. And we have Alia Okpebolo Khan, Northern senators preach forgiveness, faith, resilience, and unity. We have now how greed, regulatory lapses fueled 1.3 trillion CBEX heist. And that's interesting to see. Serap sues Tinubu government over ban on Idris Abdulkarim's song, Tell Your Papa. Kanu's family raises the alarm over campaign of calumny against him. That's coming from IPOB. Wow. Serap. We seem to hear a whole lot about Serap and their activities. They talk tough and then the rest of it, but I can't remember seeing them actually put to action most of the things that they say. And now, how do you think this issue of Serap taking the government to court over the ban of Idris Abdulkarim's song, Tell Your Papa?
Well, first of all, it's unfortunate that in Nigeria this is happening, where and many persons before now have always said the current president is a Democrat. And then the president being a Democrat, it would now give Nigeria opportunity to actually explore, and
the true dividends for democracy.
Dividend of democracy would come up really. And that has been a lot of people's stand when they were fighting for him during the election. And this is happening, even a song. We are having this issue, even for a song, Tell Your Papa. And so the question, I think, if I were in the position of the government, what I would have done is maybe even put that to critique, like, tell your papa that what is happening. This is what we are doing to address these issues. But because they are doing nothing, they had to ban a song. And, well,
by banning the song, you're even making the song more popular.
By banning it, they made the song more popular. And it has put a lot of question marks to the administration, which is unfortunate, really. But let's now narrow these whole things down. The messages that were in that, are they false? Every person would want to come from different angles to give their own. Unfortunately, Nigeria have become so tribalized that even people who are the slaves
the victims of the harsh reality of government
fighting to defend the government. I mean, how you cannot help a man who is drowning and has refused to be helped. If you go ahead to help that man, he will end up making you drown too. That's the unfortunate situation that we have found ourselves in Nigeria. And once again, I will even say, in case the presidency thinks that what Idris said there is not true, I mean, this is our everyday reality. I mean, the cost of fuel, the cost of food, inflation everywhere, the cost of living, this is just our reality. Even go to, and the unfortunate thing is sometimes you hear the amount of money that the government will tell you that they have voted into the lives of healthcare system, but it does not translate to the realities on ground. So I think it's high time we begin to even restructure once again the entity called Nigeria. We have given power to a lot of persons for far too long that we don't even know people that are manipulating us and how they are manipulating us. But we know that the impact of whatever the government is doing and then these manipulators is seen in our everyday lives by the debt, the high rising debt that we are experiencing in Nigeria. And then even families that are breaking now because men cannot even meet up to the needs of the home. So leaving the women now to also try to go out to look for food. And then we know how prone and how vulnerable that becomes at the expense of the family, that is the fabrics of every society.
Well, we still have here earlier Okpebolo Khan, Northern senators preach forgiveness, faith, resilience, unity. Are they cashing in on the fact that we are in Easter and then talking about forgiveness and then preaching about humility and the rest of it, or sacrifice? When you hear our leaders telling us to, preach forgiveness, let us be resilient, I was thinking that as a parent, the first point of duty is to lead by example, because parents are first and foremost role model of their children. But when you see parents acting recklessly, it leaves no room for children to wonder, why are my parents doing this? So if my parent now comes and is living a reckless life and expects me to be righteous, you can see that the message is already skewed from the beginning. So hearing this coming from governors of the Benue and that of Edo State, you understand, you begin to wonder, I haven't had these issues with headsmen, clashes and the rest of it all. Who are you preaching the forgiveness for? Are you talking to the people that their lands, they are being pushed away from their ancestral homes for them to forgive and then allow things to be? Or, as in, I don't understand how these our leaders even come up to even ask certain things they talk about. And now they have roped in the Christian Association of Nigeria and northern leaders. Isn't it time for us to go and tell our people this and this and this? If actually we need to be a country, these are certain things that we should not do.
I agree with you completely. I think for a country to exist, one, they should have their values. They should have their value system, and then they should have their do's and don'ts. Well, there's nothing less.
We are expecting that a man who is in the helm of affairs, really, is their message, is their responsibility to preach hope, their responsibility to preach tolerance. But amidst that, why you are preaching hope, why you are preaching tolerance, the question becomes, what is your own lifestyle like? I mean, is it beyond words? Are people seeing it in your action? You cannot tell people to embrace austerity measure, to tighten their belt.
Why they see you in a fleet of cars, they see that, some of these things are not spoken. People just experience it. And it is based on the everyday experience of Nigerians that can actually show to what extent they can embrace whatever you are preaching to them. And it's unfortunate that these things are happening. We see Nigeria and its law system, its legal system, including the police, that's those who protect lives and property, seem not to be doing things equally. We are all humans, we are all citizens. We reason. If we understand that there are no society where there are no issues. But what we want to see is when these things happen, there should be statements that should be coming from the government beyond actually condemning it, telling us that these are the things that they have done, these are the people that they have arrested, these people will be charged to court, and then showing, bringing updates on the court proceedings, and eventually saying these people have been prosecuted, they are going to jail and all those things. So once citizens see those kind of things, they now know, okay, these people are working. But in a situation where these things happen, the government does not really do anything that the people would see, only for you to come and preach peace. Are you preaching peace to the victims to still continue to embrace people that are coming to kill them or what? So that is living a double standard life. Once again, I'm advising the governors, yes, why they're telling the people to be law-abiding, why they're preaching peace, it's important that they make the people see. I mean, they have that communication with the people. That these people that did this, we are not going to allow them go unpunished. Beyond that words, once the police catches one person, you give them update that this person has been caught. This is what we are doing to train others. So that people will know that, okay, the government is doing something. And not at this time around, these things happen, they don't go to visit the victims. Even when they go, it is because of the backlash of the public. Just go there, they grandstand and look around, and then they end it at that. And they're telling the people to be calm. I mean, it is only the three that will see a man coming with axe to cut it and still remain. If human beings, no matter how weak you are, you would even want to run away,
exactly.
or want to react. And it's unfortunate that we just pray Nigerians don't get to the level where we will react and then completely go into a failed state.
And then we have the banner headline, Nigeria descending into tyranny. And that's coming from Bakari. We've heard a lot about this young man this morning. ACF, Puka orders decry worsening security. Tinubu determined to do more on security. That's coming from the presidency. Bauchi governor, foreign affairs minister rivalry escalates. Electricity customers would lose 497 billion naira in 2024. Flood kills 3, destroys 10,000 hectares of rice farm in Niger State. And then we have Baba Ahmed from presidential advisor to critic says none of us won't vote blindly in 2027. And then he's flirting with opposition. That's coming from Onanuga. Wow. Sometimes when you read some of these things, you see yourself. How quickly politicians, you understand, appointees switch allegiance. Is it that when it's not going, it becomes so difficult to actually know on what ground these people are actually leaving the positions they were in a particular government to now speak either for themselves or for the masses. And now, with the presidency now saying that he's flirting with opposition, does it mean that I can't resign from your government and then have my own stance and then say things that is happening without somebody throwing tantrums at me and saying that, okay, fine, he's flirting with opposition? It's okay. Does it mean that we can't even speak anymore in this country?
Well, so when it comes to speech, I think everybody's entitled to the way they speak. And that is why, as a nation, what we need to do is to build the educational level of its citizens. So that people can know to what extent they analyze issues, really, and not taking things hook, line, and sinker. For me, I respect Baba Ahmed. I respect him very well because we are in a country where people don't even resign. They might not even believe in your philosophy. They might not believe in your policies or your principle. They just believe in the money. And even if maybe they don't want to say anything, they end up just keeping quiet, just for the rest of your administration because of what they are getting. So it takes a man who is honorable and decent to wake up and do what? And say, you know what, I'm done with this and I want to go. It takes a decent man, really. And for the presidency to come up and be saying what they are saying, well, they would always react to issues. But the question now becomes, what is the reality of an everyday Nigerian? So eventually, no matter the policy that the government comes up with, is it at the federal level, is it at the state level, is it at the local government level? The question we would always ask ourselves is, what is our reality? So if the government is saying they are working and it is different from the realities of an everyday Nigerian, I mean, it's unfortunate. We don't want, unless they are in government to position themselves just for international recognition. That one is different. But if you're in government for the sake of your people, regardless of whatever international recognition you are getting, it is something different. So you are working, you have done these policies, people feel they are not happy with what you are doing. And we see this every day from what the citizens are saying. So the question becomes, what is the way forward? So that this man has come out, it is even an indictment
for the present day government that somebody who is working for them had to resign, leave the, have to leave their, have to leave them to really begin to speak for his people. It shows that they should really come back, sit down when they have their federal executive meetings and the likes, their council meetings, to ask what is the way forward, how can we even remedy the situation, and not always attacking. Eventually, let me burst the bubble now. If they continue to attack, they will get to a time when they finish their tenure, then no, they cannot speak for themselves again. A lot of things will be unveiled. Let them not forget what happened to Buhari. When Nigerians were complaining about the policies of Buhari and the likes of it all, they were like, everything is working out well. But now that they're in power, they themselves are even still they've started condemning those things that Buhari did that they said was working out well. So I would advise the presidency, it's not every time that the citizens come out to speak on their ills that you attack. Sometimes you can even call for public polls. What is the opinion poll like? What do people want to be done differently? That is the only way a nation grows, and not feeling that you are the alpha and the omega, you know it all, and what you are doing is, it must be as you are saying it.
Now, let us round up on this part. We're talking, just let me cite it from your alpha and omega, because Baba Ahmed went further to say that the Northerners won't vote blindly in 2027. And that's still making, to some assertion, that the North seem to have that alpha and omega nomenclature, believing that to win an election, you need them. When do we actually need to change this narrative and make them understand that it is not just by so-called power, population like you guys claim. In fact, certain data are proven, are there, out there in our social media to actually tell us that the North is not as populated as we all think they are. You understand? Because a whole lot of demographics has been coming up and telling us that when you travel to the North, you definitely be seeing places where people actually don't even live in, as compared to the South.
I agree with you, and I'll end with this really. Well, I don't expect, if I'm marketing myself, to say anything less of myself really. I would have to say things to either to promote that I have the capacity, and then that is what they are doing. So I would not expect a Northerner to be saying anything less to show that the North is not important. That is what they are doing. So the next question is, then the Southerners, how are they also repositioning themselves to actually know that it is not only the North that should determine? So why the North are doing, but this thing should be done civilly. That is one. Then another thing is the umpires. What are we even saying about the umpires? So the electronic voting that the Beavers revealed something in the last election. Then there is something we call the KKK, Kanu, Katsina, and Kaduna. They used to produce millions. That's 3 million, 5 million voters. But check before the Beavers, the numbers of votes they used to produce, and then compare it with the numbers of votes that they produced when we used Beavers at the last election. The numbers reduced drastically, showing that they don't really have that massive number. So no matter what anybody says, we are allowed to blow our own trumpet, especially when it is politics. But the thing is, what we should be looking at now is our institutions. How are they functioning? I mean, we want INEC that would really do a free and fair election. Even though some people will tell you that, is there really a free and fair election anywhere in the world? Yes, there could be. And this happens in the situations where people have set a standard and follow that standard. So that is what we should be advocating. Beyond that also, Nigeria is talking about census currently. And I'm calling on both the media, civil society actors, and every Nigerian to be interested in what happens in the census. Because it is eventually the census that shows the numbers of people that are at any particular place. Then that determines what comes to you, how revenues are shared, how budget is made. That also determines your voting power and voting considerations. So as Nigeria is talking about conducting census, will it finally happen this year, 2025, or will it go into 2026, even though it is now long overdue, going to almost 20 years or so that we last did our last census, or 30 years or thereabout even. So the question now becomes, how interested are the entire Nigerians to that census? Because everything starts with data. And once we get that data right, when they are saying they have the block, with the number, we can now know that, okay, they have the number or they don't actually have the number. And then we know where we stand. But without adequate data, I think we just continue to speak to our voices and everybody's allowed to say what they want to say, really.
Yeah, everybody's allowed to say what they want to say, but then whatever it is that you know you're saying, make sure that you're saying the truth, because the truth doesn't need a witness for it to stand. And that's how we're going to be wrapping this discussion, the newspaper review segment on Good Morning Anambra this morning. I want to use this opportunity to thank Samuel Ololo for making himself available for us to actually talk on what's happening in the Nigerian dailies this morning. Don't go anywhere. The show still continues after this.